There's a particular kind of quiet that exists only in hospitals after midnight. Not silence exactly. The machines still hum. Footsteps still echo down long hallways. But there's a softness to it all. A gentleness that the daylight hours never quite manage. As if the building itself is holding its breath, keeping watch over those who cannot watch over themselves. I think about that quiet often now. How it felt like being inside a secret, something precious and fragile that only a few people ever got to hold. Sarah was a night nurse for 17 years. She told me once that she preferred the late shifts, the ones that stretched from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. Not because the work was easier, but because the world felt truer somehow, smaller, more honest. During the day, she said, everyone's performing. Patients pretend they're braver than they are. Families pretend they're not afraid. Even we pretend we have all the answers. She paused, the way she always did when she was gathering her thoughts. But at night, people stop pretending. They let themselves be tired. They let themselves be scared. And that's when the real healing begins. I never forgot that. The way she understood that sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone is simply witness their truth without trying to fix it. It was a Thursday in October when Sarah met Margaret Chen. She remembers because Thursday nights were always the longest. The hospital caught between the exhaustion of the work week and the anticipation of weekend visitors. The hallways felt particularly empty then, as if even hope had decided to sleep in. Margaret was 83 years old, admitted 3 days earlier with pneumonia that her body no longer had the strength to fight. Sarah had seen it before, the way a simple infection could become something else entirely when your life had already grown so tired. The chart said Margaret had no family, no emergency contacts, no visitors listed in the log by the nurses' station. Just a name, a date of birth, and a list of failing systems. But when Sarah entered room 247 that first night, she found Margaret awake, her eyes fixed on the window where the city lights blurred through the rain. "Can't sleep?" Sarah asked softly, checking the IV line. Margaret turned her head slowly, as if the movement cost more than it should. "I'm remembering," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper, worn thin by the oxygen mask. "That's different from sleeping." Sarah adjusted the blanket, her hands moving with the kind of practiced gentleness that comes from touching hundreds of dying bodies, each one precious, each one someone's entire world. "What are you remembering tonight?" Margaret's eyes returned to the window. "The rain, how it sounded on the roof of the restaurant where I worked. I was 19, so sure I knew everything." She smiled, then, just barely. Funny how wrong we can be. Over the next few nights, Sarah found herself lingering in room 247 longer than her other rounds required. Margaret would be awake, always awake, watching the rain or the stars or the slow procession of red taillights on the street below. They talked about small things, the taste of her grandmother's soup, the sound of her daughter's laugh when she was small, the weight of a wedding ring on her finger, back when there was someone to wear it for. Margaret never complained, never asked for more pain medication than absolutely necessary, never pressed the call button unless it was truly urgent. "I don't want to be a burden," she told Sarah one night. And Sarah, who had heard those words 1,000 times from 1,000 different mouths, felt something crack open in her chest. "You're not a burden, Margaret. You're a person. That's enough." But even as she said it, Sarah knew Margaret didn't quite believe her. There was something in the older woman's eyes, a kind of apology for still existing, still taking up space in a world that seemed to have moved on without her. On the 7th night, Sarah arrived for her shift to find Margaret's breathing had changed. It was shallower now, more labored, the kind of breathing that tells you someone is using every last bit of strength just to pull air into their lungs. Dr. Patel met Sarah in the hallway. "We're keeping her comfortable," he said quietly. "It could be hours, maybe a day or two, but her body's shutting down." Sarah nodded. She'd seen this transition countless times. The way the body knows, even when the mind doesn't want to accept it yet, that it's time to let go. She spent most of that shift in Margaret's room. The older woman drifted in and out of consciousness, her hand occasionally reaching out for something that wasn't there. Sarah held it when that happened, her warm fingers wrapping around Margaret's cold ones. "It's all right," she whispered. "You're not alone." Around 3 in the morning, Margaret's eyes opened. They were clearer than they'd been in days, bright with something that looked almost like urgency. "I need paper," she said, "and a pen. Please." Sarah didn't question it. She'd learned long ago that the dying often have last tasks, final words they need to speak or write. She found a notepad and a pen from the nurse's station and helped Margaret prop herself up enough to write. The older woman's hand shook badly. Each letter took enormous effort. Sarah wanted to offer to write it for her, but something in Margaret's expression told her this was something she needed to do herself. It took nearly 20 minutes. When Margaret finally finished, she folded the paper once, pressed it into Sarah's hand, and then seemed to sink back into the pillows as if she'd just completed the hardest work of her life. "Not yet," Margaret whispered. "Don't read it yet." Her eyes closed. Her breathing deepened into something that almost resembled sleep. Sarah tucked the note into her pocket and stayed by the bedside, holding Margaret's hand as the night stretched toward morning. Margaret died at 5:47 a.m., just as the first gray light was beginning to soften the darkness outside her window. Sarah was there. She made sure of it, because no one should have to leave this world without someone bearing witness, without someone to say, "You mattered, you were here, you were seen." She cleaned Margaret's face gently with a warm cloth, smoothed her hair, made her look peaceful for whoever would come to take care of the body. And then, in the quiet of that room, where a life had just ended, Sarah pulled the folded note from her pocket. Her hands were shaking as she opened it. The handwriting was barely legible, each word a struggle scratched onto paper. But the message was clear. "To whoever finds this, I am sorry for dying alone. I know it makes extra work. I know nurses and doctors have more important things to do than hold the hand of an old woman nobody wants. But I need you to know something. That nurse with the dark hair, Sarah, her badge said, she stayed with me every night. She listened to my stories, even though they weren't interesting. She held my hand even though I haven't been anybody's mother or wife or friend in so long I forgot what it felt like to be touched with kindness. She called me by my name, not my room number, not the pneumonia in 247, my name. I was invisible for so long, but she saw me. Please tell her. That mattered. When you have nothing left, when you're just a burden waiting to stop being one, someone seeing you as human, that's everything. Tell her she saved me, not my body, but me. Thank you for letting me take up space a little longer. Margaret Chen. Sarah stood in that room for a long time, holding a piece of paper that suddenly weighed more than she knew how to carry. Sarah showed the note to Dr. Patel first, then to the charge nurse, then to the hospital administrator who'd been copied on an email chain about optimizing patient interaction protocols. corporate language for spending less time with people who were dying. Within a week, that note had been photocopied, discussed in 3 different committee meetings, and pinned to the bulletin board in the staff break room. Within a month, the hospital had changed its policy. No patient would be admitted without a psychosocial assessment. No patient would go 24 hours without a meaningful conversation with a staff member. Night nurses would be given protected time, 15 minutes per patient, minimum, for what the new policy called dignity rounds. But policies are just words on paper. What really changed was something harder to measure, something that lived in the small moments between chart notes and medication schedules. Nurses started sitting down when they entered patient rooms instead of hovering by the door. They learned to ask not just, "How's your pain?" but, "What are you thinking about today?" Doctors began ending their rounds by looking patients in the eye and saying their names, really saying them, as if those syllables mattered. The hospital started training volunteers specifically for the night shift, people willing to simply sit with those who had no one to bear witness to lives that might otherwise end unseen. It wasn't perfect. Hospitals never are. People still died alone sometimes. Staff still got overwhelmed, stretched too thin, too tired to always remember that the body in bed, 7, is more than a collection of symptoms. But something had shifted. Margaret's words had cracked something open, a kind of collective awareness that had been sleeping beneath the fluorescent lights and the beeping machines and the endless rush to save lives. Sometimes you save someone by stitching their wounds, sometimes by giving them medicine, and sometimes you save someone by simply staying in the room. Sarah kept the original note in her locker. She'd take it out sometimes during her break, unfold it carefully, and read those shaky words again. She saw me. That's what Margaret had written. 3 words that contained everything about what it means to be human in a world that so often treats us like problems to be solved instead of people to be loved. I asked Sarah once, years after this happened, if she thought about Margaret often. She was quiet for a moment, looking out the window of the cafe where we sat, watching people hurry past in the rain. "Every single shift," she finally said. "Every time I walk into a room, I think about her. I think about all the Margarets, the people who believe they're invisible, who've decided they're not worth anyone's time." She turned back to me, and her eyes were bright. That's the thing about being seen. It's not complicated. You don't need special training or fancy equipment. You just need to stay, to listen, to look at someone and let them know, "I see you. You matter. You're not alone." She smiled, soft and sad at the same time. Margaret taught me that. She taught all of us. And I think that's what healing really is. Not fixing everything that's broken, but witnessing it, honoring it, letting someone know their pain and their joy, and their whole messy, beautiful life was worth something. I think about Margaret sometimes when I'm alone late at night, when the world feels too big and I feel too small, when I wonder if anything I do matters, if anyone would notice if I simply disappeared. And then I remember, someone did notice. Someone stayed. Not because it was required, not because it looked good on a performance review, but because a nurse named Sarah understood something essential, that the most profound medicine we possess isn't found in a pill bottle or an operating room. It's found in presence, in attention, in the simple, radical act of seeing another person completely and letting them know they matter. Margaret's note changed hospital policy, yes, but more importantly, it changed how people understood their work, their purpose, their responsibility to one another. It reminded everyone who read it That we're all just Margaret, really. All of us walking through this world, hoping to be seen, terrified we're invisible, aching to know that our existence matters to someone, somewhere. And we're all Sarah too. All of us with the capacity to stay when it's easier to leave, to listen when it's faster to assume, to witness another person's humanity, even when, especially when, the world insists they're not worth the time. The hospital still has that policy. Dignity rounds, they call them. 15 minutes of unhurried presence. 15 minutes of remembering that healing isn't just about curing disease. It's about honoring the person who carries that disease, seeing them whole even when their body is breaking. I don't know if Margaret knew what her words would create. If she understood that her final act would be one of grace, not just for herself, but for all the invisible people who would come after her. But I'd like to think she did. I'd like to think that in those last hours, as she struggled to form each letter on that page, she knew she was leaving something behind. Not just a note, but a reminder. A reminder that we save each other not through grand gestures, but through small acts of attention, through staying when we could leave, through speaking someone's name like it's a prayer, through holding a hand and whispering, "You're not alone, you matter, I see you." That's what Margaret gave us. That's what Sarah honored. And maybe that's what we all need to remember on the dark nights when we feel most invisible, most forgotten. Someone might be watching. Someone might be staying. Someone might be learning your name and holding it gently in their heart, treating your existence like the sacred thing it is. We are all seen more than we know. We are all held more than we understand. And sometimes the smallest kindness, a nurse staying through the night, a hand reaching out in the darkness, is the thing that saves us. Not our bodies necessarily, but us. The part that needs to know we mattered. The part that needs to know we were here. The part that needs to know someone witnessed our life and deemed it worthy of love. The rain has started again outside my window. I can hear it soft against the glass, steady and patient, the way time moves when you're not fighting it anymore. I think I'll sit here a little longer, just to listen, just to remember, just to honor all the Margarets and all the Sarahs, all the people who taught us that the most important thing we can do in this brief, burning life is simply to see each other clearly and love each other well. There's something healing in that, don't you think? The fire's gone low now, but the warmth remains. That's how love works, I suppose. Even after the flame goes out, even after the words are spoken, and the life is lived, and the final breath is taken, the warmth remains. The seeing remains. The mattering remains. And that, I think, is enough.